I have been living on $1,000 per month for most of my life. Also, I have not been receiving any governmental support. Here is what I recommend to do that always works for me, and I am sure will work for anyone. The very first thing to do is to always keep a really tight budget. Obviously, only spending $1,000 a month requires a lot of discipline and changes to make sure you can meet that requirement. For example, a good start to nearly reducing your electricity bill to zero is to get solar panels installed. Of course, it's not cheap to get these installed, but it can help you get to a point where you can live off the grid. I was initially paying around $70 a month for electricity, and now that payment is entirely gone. Another major aspect that's basically taken my grocery and food bills down to nearly zero is growing my own food. It's unbelievably inexpensive and quite easy to grow your own food from home. I take advantage of a great grow light along with bright windows to grow all sorts of food. For example, I have a strawberry plant, pepper plants, and tomato plants, and I've even ventured into growing a melon right at home. However, it's normal for me to get remarks from people, especially when I'm trying to remodel and renovate something in my home. Why do I keep trying to budget the renovation so strictly when I have more than enough money to get it out of the way in one shot? This leads to a sad truth in America and several other parts of the world. Most people are lacking in financial education and don't understand how rich people are rich in the first place. What rich people do is that they always save their money first, rather than pay their expenses first. It's normal to get so caught up in wanting to have things, trying to pay off bills, and cover general living expenses, that it seems like we never have enough money after. In those moments, it's also normal to think, if only I was rich, this would be so much easier. But being rich is about how much you earn, how well you manage your money, and how well you can save your money. With that in mind, when I renovate parts of my home and I can't fit a specific item in my monthly budget, like a new marble countertop, then it has to wait until I can fit it in my budget. Unfortunately, with the onset of the internet and the ease of access to virtually anything we want by swiping our fingers or typing something, we forget the joyful experience of delayed gratification. When you have to work hard to attain something, it feels so much better when you do. And you also feel much better about yourself for having worked hard to get what you wanted. With a tight budget and some discipline, you can manage very low expenses every single month. The next important aspect to focus on is to make sure you're constantly educating yourself on finances, because as I've mentioned before, many people lack proper financial education. For example, a quick search on YouTube can help you find stories about people who've gone bankrupt after making a good income. For example, there was a family that was making close to $100,000 a year through a little business, but the pandemic totally destroyed their business, causing them to go bankrupt and proceed to live in their cars. Just for some quick math, if this couple managed to only spend $1,000 every month, then they'd save a total of $88,000 per year. Even if they spent a total of $2,000 a month, they'd still have $76,000 saved every year. It's kind of mind-blowing to think about how quickly they could have saved with some proper money management. This isn't the only case of bad money management I've seen. Just the other day, I saw a post on Facebook about a couple who owned a small house with a dog and said they were barely making it with a combined income of $100,000. Knowing the expenses of a small house and how easy it is to get a budget and keep your expenses low, I just can't process how they aren't breezing through life. Another story is a documentary about showing how hard people are having it by showing the massive lineups at food banks. The problem is that some of those people were driving extremely expensive cars like Mercedes or Cadillacs. The thought that pops into my head is, why aren't you getting rid of your super expensive car to get yourself on your feet? Education is key to financial success and independence, and there's really no shortage of resources through books, online articles, financial advisors, or YouTube, like this channel, for example. If you want to avoid having to go bankrupt, live in your car, or just simply take your finances into your own hands, then subscribe to Investors Weekly. Proper money management is a tough thing to learn, but not because it's complicated. It's tough because the psychological aspect of money is difficult for most people to work with. For example, knowing that it's not a good money habit to buy wants is much easier said than done. When you feel the creeping craving of wanting to impulsively buy something, it can take a lot more than just walking away. The key to success, though, is consistency and practice every single day. This means educating yourself daily, asking yourself questions like, is this an item I actually need? And learning to be honest with yourself about it. If we take the example of the documentary I mentioned before, the question would be, is it worth it to have my $60,000 Mercedes? Or is it better to drive a $5,000 car and start cracking down on saving money so I can have a Mercedes without being in financial trouble? Or if I just got a big bonus from work, should I spend it on something I want or put a lump sum payment on my home to quickly get rid of my mortgage? Speaking of mortgages and rent, do an honest evaluation of your current living condition. If over 50% of your income is going to rent, then something isn't right. There are plenty of options that can help you save up enough money for a home without having to spend all your money on rent. For instance, get a roommate to help lower the costs. Yes, it may not be the most fun thing in the world to have your privacy shared, but these are the kinds of sacrifices that need to be made in order to find financial independence. Another option, if possible, is to live with your parents until you can build yourself a solid foundation for saving. In my case, I actually lived with my mom and only paid her $400 for rent and food. Later on, I lived in my partner's parents' house with my partner, and we collectively only paid $500 for rent, but we purchased our own food. If it's possible, you can also try to live in your car for a year or two, and you can take showers at a friend's house. It's not impossible to lower your paycheck significantly, but you have to be willing to put in the work. I'd like to know, what budget do you live on every month? Let us know in the comments below what works for you, and if you have a comfort zone that allows you to save a lot of money every month while living a luxurious life.